I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to the story and welcome to Friday. We made it. You know, roughly 3 weeks ago, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek issued her recommended budget for the next 2 years. There's a lot of spending in it, roughly $32 billion. But one thing that we noticed that is not there, money for the new I-5 bridge. And that missing $1 billion, that's our big story tonight. Now, when I say the money is missing, it's not like somebody took it. The governor just did not put any money for the bridge in her proposed budget. Is that a big deal? Well, yes, thank you for asking. It certainly is, because Washington State already committed $1 billion, and now Oregon is expected to pony up another $1 billion, and the federal government will kick in some money. Just how much? That's a story for another day. Here's a comment from Greg Johnson, the program administrator, talking about bridge funding last December.
So as far as funding, back in March, the Washington legislature generously put up $1 billion to help fund the construction of this program. And we'll be going before the Oregon legislature in the 2023 session for a similar ask of $1 billion. But we're also looking for dollars from the federal government, as well as some tolling to help pay for and help operate and maintain this the new bridge that we construct.
Now, here's a quick backgrounder for those of you a little bit fuzzy on this project. There is a serious effort underway now to build 2 new bridges over the Columbia River next to the existing I-5 bridges. One of the existing bridges is 105 years old. Roughly 143,000 vehicles cross the bridge each weekday. And by the way, it's one of the region's worst bottlenecks. Rush hour in the morning and night can last as long as 5 hours for each commute, so 10 hours. That's why there's a push to build the new bridges with more room. An earlier effort failed back in 2013, but this one is charging ahead. But it's not going to be cheap. The latest estimate is at least $6 billion. So you'd think the governor might include $1 billion Oregon is expected to kick in, but she did not. I emailed her office today to ask why. They did not respond. A lack of priority from the governor in her budget, well, that means that the problem then is dumped into the lap of lawmakers. I talked with our political analyst Betsy Johnson about that today. She has served on the legislature's Ways and Means and Transportation committees, and she is out of office now.
I think the absence of funding for the bridge sends a very significant message to the legislature. It puts the blame on the legislature in that now this is your problem, and I think it sets the process back.
Now, in a way, it's always been the legislature's problem. The governor only proposes a budget. It's the lawmakers who really crank out the numbers and decide who gets what. And yes, the budget does have to balance. This is not the federal government. That will be tougher than the last couple of years. The state is expecting to have about $3 billion less to spend in the general fund. That would be about 11% less for the next 2 years.
The problem that I see looming for the legislature is the federal money is beginning to wind down, if not disappear. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in that just say, well, the legislature will get it from the general fund. There is a terminus to how much money the legislature can find. And so if the Department of Forestry wants to backfill the failures of that department with general fund, that's another bite. If we do some kind of magnificent housing or the work on the chips, the silicon chips, all of that is going to require money. And it remains to Ways and Means, the professional staff as well as the co-chairs on the House and Senate side, to find that money and fit it into a balanced budget mosaic.
Now, we probably won't see that budget start to take shape for another month or so. Regardless of how Oregon lawmakers find the $1 billion needed, the new bridge will have tolling. In fact, tolling will start on the existing bridge as the new one's being built. Betsy Johnson said planners should be thinking about what that will do to semi-trucks carrying freight.
If tolling happens, where does that traffic movement occur? Is it going to jam up the other urban bridge? Is it going to send traffic up to the Lewis and Clark Bridge in Longview-Kelso? Is it possible it sends it up to the Megler Bridge between Washington and Astoria? How do those distribution centers get serviced if we suddenly dramatically change the traffic flow to manipulate around tolling? How do companies absorb this cost? How do commuters absorb the cost? How does some mom taking their kid to school absorb the cost? That's less present on the I-5 bridge as tolling is on, say, the Abernathy Bridge or some of the other lesser bridges.
If the bridge project moves forward, leaders expect to start construction late in the year 2025. Now to a follow-up on a story we've been telling you about this week that we're calling Bourbongate. The chairman of the board at the OLCC is out, told to resign by the governor. Here's some background. This involves the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission and 6 top executives who put aside hard-to-get bottles of bourbon for themselves. The big issue here is not really about booze. It's more about using a privileged position in government in a job to get something that the regular folks can't, and that is a big problem. Wednesday, the executive director who was involved resigned. That same day, the board chair of the commission gave a rambling defense of the group. Paul Rosenbaum insisted commissioners knew nothing about Bourbongate while it was happening and that he personally followed appropriate steps by keeping the practice secret after he learned those involved had been disciplined. He outlined how much work the commissioners do and said that he personally was reluctant to accept his position 6 years ago.
One other thing I want to say. None of you probably know my background. I was CEO of a major NASDAQ company with a hell of a lot more people than this agency. I had a full staff of HR people and I had a full staff of legal people. I sit on many boards across the country, public and private. I didn't want to take this job unless we have competent people in here, because my job and their job is not to micromanage the executive director of this agency. It's the last thing anybody who sits on the board wants to do. And we don't do that.
Well, perhaps you should. If the board does not watch over the agency and over the executive director, who does? Now, I'm told by those who know him that Mr. Rosenbaum is a very smart man and was doing what he really thought was best for the OLCC and the state. But obviously, the governor disagreed. She asked for his resignation the morning after his speech, and he gave it. And now to police body cameras. We've talked a lot about them here, and I have to say I was under the impression that the city of Portland and the Justice Department did not want the cops to be able to view their video under any circumstances until they had written their reports. But now that we have the actual documents from the city showing their final offer, I see that's not the case. The city and the Justice Department only want officers blocked from viewing their body cam video after they've used deadly force, like after they shot someone. And they might still be able to watch that if the chief gives the okay. But the union continues to fight to view the video without prior approval, even after deadly force. It's an issue that has avoided agreement for years, and it has many of you frustrated.
I'm calling about the body cams in Portland for the police. The word embarrassing, the word ridiculous seems to come to mind quickly for me. It's a larger city, and we're the only one that doesn't have this in the country. Why can't we just look at what they do, pick out a very successful process that they use, and copy it? It's not difficult to figure that out. So let's get busy and get this taken care of. We need body cameras on the police in Portland, Oregon.
Some pretty good wisdom there, Penny. Thank you. Penny shared a sentiment that many of you agree with. What is the holdup? The process has been dragging on now for more than 8 years, leaving Portland as the largest city in the country whose city police do not use the technology. Just this week, the city and the Portland Police Association announced an impasse on body cameras, basically throwing up their hands. They can't come to an agreement, and they want a state arbitrator to decide, causing potentially month-long delays. Now, let's take a look at the city's final offer that was released today. On the first page, we're focused on the first few lines. Members or officers can watch their body cam footage for an investigation or ahead of a court testimony, but there are a few exceptions that we'll get into in a moment. First, we'll look at non-force incidents. In any non-force incident, a traffic stop, for example, officers can watch their body cam footage before writing their report. The force incidents section is the rub for the police union. In instances of non-deadly force, an officer will first give their account of what happened to a supervisor, and the question for that interview are listed here below. After that interview, the officer would be able to watch their body cam footage to complete their force report. And when it comes to the use of deadly force or an in-custody death, officers would not be able to access any of the footage unless authorized by the chief. And that's the part right there that the Portland Police Association, the union, has a problem with. The president of the union is Sergeant Aaron Schmautz. He says they want officers to be able to review video before writing a report or being interviewed by a supervisor after all incidents, deadly or not.
You know, if you take somebody who's been involved in a critical incident, who's been involved in this very stressful kind of high temperature deal, and then immediately ask them to just kind of spit out what happened without collecting all evidence, you run into significant issues, including questions about that person being accurate or honest, when in reality, they just haven't been able to either calm down or collect all the evidence and understand all the different variables that exist. We just want to get it right. We want to make sure our officers know what questions they need to answer, that they're able to take all the available evidence and provide a comprehensive kind of package of information and give that to the public, so we have just one good, clean explanation of what happened. The issue of review itself is kind of a newer issue as far as the concern, because the policies surrounding review are kind of settled around the country. I mean, every agency in Oregon that has body-worn cameras allows for a policy commensurate with what the PPA's position is. The vast majority of police agencies around the country.
Well, not quite. Let's start with his claim that every agency in Oregon is doing basically the same thing that the union wants. Without doing any research, we can tell you that's false, based solely on our interview with Salem Police Chief Trevor Womack yesterday.
The only time that they're not going to be able to review that necessarily is for the big serious critical incidents, right? An officer involved shooting, for example, a fatal use of force. We don't investigate ourselves, of course. We have a process here where an outside agency conducts that investigation. They would be in charge of that investigative process, and our district attorney as well. And their position is that officers would not view that video before that interview occurs, for example.
Now, to be fair, Salem launched their body cam program this week, so perhaps the PPA is not aware of their policies yet. But for deadly use of force incidents in Salem, those officers are not getting to look at the video ahead of any interviews or reports. Now, the union leader is correct that Gresham and Eugene police do allow officers to watch their footage even after deadly use of force incidents before being interviewed. And we have not yet heard back from state police on their body cam policy. The city of Vancouver kicks off their body cam program on Monday, and the chief there told us their officers also will be allowed to view the video no matter what the incident. We also checked in with a few police departments in cities around the country that are similar in size to Portland. In Las Vegas, officers can watch their footage before writing a report for any kind of incident. In Boston, it's somewhat of a mix. When there's a deadly use of force, officers by officers there, the body cam footage is immediately taken back to the station and uploaded, and supervisors can decide if or when the officers get to see it before they give a statement. But in Nashville, their Metropolitan Police Force operates under very similar rules to what the city of Portland is proposing. Their officers can watch their body cam footage before writing a report for any incident except use of force that causes serious bodily injury or death. In that case, the chief of police has to give permission for the officer to view it, the same as the proposed policy right here in Portland, Oregon. So here's my opinion on all this. I'm in the camp that says the sooner we get these body cams on Portland police officers, the better for everyone. Ahead of today's development, I think a lot of us blamed the city for the holdup, thinking to ourselves, come on, man, the city's got to get its act together, get this thing done. And in this years-long saga to get body cams on Portland streets, believe me, the city is not without blame. But in this case, when you're so close to finally getting it done, this time it is the police union causing the delay. In my opinion, the city's offer on body cams is very reasonable. Non-use of force incidents, videos available to you. Non-lethal use of force, give an interview to the supervisor about what happened, then go watch the video and finish the report. That feels fair. And deadly use of force incidents, no video unless the chief says otherwise. You give your side of things, and investigators who will watch the video can determine if the deadly use of force was justified. Look, people's lives are involved here. And I know on both sides, this is important to everyone. Everyone wants to make sure things are done right and justice is served. And in my opinion, I'll say it again, the policy proposed by the city is fair. It's being done just like that in places that include Salem and Nashville already. So let's get it done here. Now, I realize my opinion on this isn't likely to change anything. What we know is that an arbitrator is going to come in and decide what Portland's policy will look like, and that could take months. Even then, the Justice Department can overrule the arbitrator, which would likely lead to lawsuits and more delays in court, and it will just go on and on and on. So for now, Portland will remain the largest city in the country whose city police force does not have body cams. And as we have for the past 8 years, we wait. I think that's ridiculous. Look, if there's officers out there that are watching this and you agree with me, you should go to your union leadership now and make your feelings known. It's time to get those cameras in the field. So what do you think about all this? Should the Portland Police Association compromise and accept the city's offer? Or should they dig their heels in and hope the arbitrator rules in their favor? Let us know what you think. Send an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Coming up next on The Story, the city of Portland is being sued by the state of Montana, all because of a piece of city code that was changed nearly 7 years ago regarding the storage and transport of oil and gas. It's not the first suit of its kind, but it is the first time this issue has gone to federal court. Environmental reporter Cale Williams will join us to explain when The Story returns. Welcome back. Tonight, the city of Portland is being sued in federal court by the state of Montana and several fossil fuel industry groups. The issue? A change in Portland City Code from 2016 that limits the storage and transport of oil and gas in and around the Rose City. Now, the suit alleges the city is discriminating against out-of-state businesses by banning the development and expansion of fossil fuel facilities that handle more than 2 million gallons. And that is important because with a deepwater port, multiple rail lines, and access to oil and gas pipelines, Portland is a major international shipping hub. But The code amendment provided exceptions for local use, like fuel for the Portland airport, for example, and other businesses. Environmental reporter Cale Williams joins me now. Cale, this idea of discriminating against outside businesses, is it going to fly? What do you think?
Well, the suit alleges that the city is in violation of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. And that's according to the complaint, which was filed Tuesday in Oregon District Court. Portland City Attorney declined requests for an interview, and Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen did the same. But he did give us a written statement, and he said that the city policies have been bad for business in his state. Quote, Portland's hypocritical policies kneecap Montana industries and workers from getting our energy products to market while trying to protect its own citizens from the consequences of its short-sighted actions. But Nick Caleb, he's an attorney with the Breach Collective, which is an Oregon-based climate justice advocacy group. He had a much different take on the lawsuit.
The kind of straightforward argument they're making is that their ability to earn profits via risky transport and storage of hazardous materials in Portland trumps the right of Portlanders to be safe from massive industrial disasters.
And there's hundreds of these big tanks on the Willamette River, right? What's the danger when the big one hits?
Close to 600. Wow. These tanks are all on liquefiable soil, and they contain about 90% of the liquid fuel that Oregon uses. And so the critical energy infrastructure hub that you're talking about, recent studies have found that if there is a bigger earthquake, up to 200 million gallons of petroleum products could spill in a worst-case scenario. That's on par with the Deepwater Horizon. But the lawsuit says that the policies have the reverse of their intended effect, essentially prohibiting oil companies from building new, safer storage facilities.
And this is not the first time that these policies have been found themselves before a judge?
That's right. These policies, they've been challenged 3 times in court, mostly in state court, and each time judges have sent them back to the city to add more details. Now, the last time they were upheld was just last year, so it'll be interesting to see where this lawsuit goes. If the two sides can't come to a settlement, it's likely to go to trial sometime in the coming months.
That'll be interesting to watch. Thank you, Cale. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Still to come on the story. Many people participate in what's called Dry January, where they give up alcohol to kick off the new year. But there are several good reasons to be more mindful about how much you drink all the time. Details when the story returns. Well, we've made it to Friday. Now, for some of you, that might mean kicking off the weekend with a drink or two. Maybe you already are. But what if you didn't? What if you drank less or stayed sober this weekend or even longer? Now, before you accuse me of being a buzzkill, there's a lot of good reasons, good health reasons to be more mindful about how much you drink. That's the topic on Straight Talk tonight with Laurel Porter as we're coming out of dry January and thinking about the rest of the year.
Sometimes we hear stories about, well, a little bit of alcohol in moderation is good for you, like red wine is good for your heart. But now there's new research the New York Times reported on that even a little bit of alcohol can be harmful. That one drink of wine a night or 2 drinks can have harmful effects. Heidi, you tell us a little bit about this new research.
Absolutely. So the cardiovascular effects and cancer, we see that even small amounts of alcohol use or use over time impact that. So, you know, often when people are having cardiovascular issues or they're going through cancer treatments, there's this, you know, a push towards abstinence because there is a correlation between those. And so, again, there's these other diseases, and then you're seeing the impact that, oh, alcohol does. And unfortunately, there was a small research, you know, that was done many, many years ago, and for the public has really caught on to that, and it really captured people's like, oh, it's healthy, I want to, you know, stick with that, and it isn't. And there's actually far more research that shows that it actually isn't. There isn't any amount that's healthy. And I also don't stand here saying don't drink. You know, we're not standing here to say like that's not a reality either. We're not standing on our, you know, don't do this. You know, that's not what we're saying either. We're just saying there's, you know, risk factors. There's a lot of different things we need to look at, and it's important for people to like know themselves, know what those risk factors are, and go from there. So.
The bottom line.
Although you could stop drinking, that's what I did. You'll feel better in the morning. It's a great conversation, all about how to look at how much you're drinking and find help if you're someone who needs it. You can catch Straight Talk tonight here at 7 o'clock on KGW or on our KGW YouTube channel and KGW Plus. All right, keep sending your questions and comments right here to thestory@kgw.com. We're going to wrap things up right after this. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.